So at some point or another, homeowners and DIYers will find themselves working on electrical panels or circuit breakers. But what people don't realize is that there are some incredibly common mistakes that most DIYers make that can lead to a very dangerous install or repair. So in this video, I'm gonna cover some of the biggest mistakes that DIYers make when they're working on or installing electrical panels and breakers. And I'm also gonna cover how it should properly be done and things to look out for so that we get a good and safe installation to avoid any shock, electrocution, or possible fire hazards. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so before we get started, as you can see in here behind me is my electrical panel. But one thing I just want to get out of the way just really quickly, and that comes down to if you are planning on doing any work on your electrical panel, of course, the power needs to be shut off. The main disconnect needs to be shut off. Now, if your main disconnect is in your panel right here, then even though you turn that off, everything going to your circuit breakers is going to be dead. But on the other side of that main shutoff, all that is still live. So you still have to be very much careful anytime you're working in an electrical panel like this one. All right, so first up on our list of big mistakes comes down to using breakers that don't match your panel. And I've actually seen people where they will put a square D breaker in an Eaton panel, for instance. Now this is a GE panel, but just for example purposes, they'll take a square D breaker, put it in an Eaton panel just because it can physically fit in there, and that can really cause a huge problem. Just because it snaps in, it doesn't mean that it's actually safe. Those breakers haven't been tested together, so they might not trip properly during a fault, which can lead to some very dangerous situations. So what is the fix for this? Well, it is actually pretty easy. Always, always, always use breakers that match your panel's brand. And all you have to do is check the panel's label for the UL listed breakers. If it's a Siemens panel, get Siemens breakers. If it's a GE panel like this one, then get GE breakers. An Eaton panel, Eaton breakers. And you get the idea. But it really is worth the extra cost to avoid a potential and very likely issue. All right, so next up on our list of really big mistakes, it really comes down to having bad or missing labels. Have you ever opened up your panel like I have right here, and the circuit breaker labels are either blank or the handwriting looks like a toddler's scribble? I know for me personally, my labels were very, and in some cases still are, very difficult to read, and there were actually rooms on a circuit breaker that weren't even listed. And that can be a giant nightmare when you're trying to troubleshoot an issue. But the fixes for this are also pretty easy. You can either get a circuit breaker finder like this one here. This one is made by Klein, where all you have to do is take the receptacle tester that comes with this tester and you plug it into the outlet in the room that you're wanting to find the circuit breaker for. Then all you have to do is take the gun portion here and scan the breakers with it. And it will show you which one is which. So definitely recommend having one of these because it can make this job incredibly, incredibly easy. And like always, for your convenience, I'll have links for this along with everything else I'm going to talk about and show you in this video. I'll have links for everything down in the description down below. So when you click on those links, it will take you directly to whatever you clicked on so you can check all of this out for yourself. But this isn't the only way you can go about doing it. There are some more old school methods where you can actually plug in a radio in the room that you're trying to find the circuit breaker for, have that radio turned on and loud enough to where you can hear it at the panel, and then when you find the proper breaker and you turn it off, the radio will then go quiet. Then after you've done one of these tests, figured out which breaker is which, that's when then you need to make sure to write clear labels with a permanent marker. You can also buy pre-made labels that are available out there, or get a label maker. I really recommend that one because you can label all kinds of things going forward. But by having very legible and clear labels on the panel, it can really save you a ton of time and headaches, especially when you are trying to troubleshoot an issue. All right, so for our third big mistake made, it comes down to overloading your panel. And overloading a panel is a very common error. Why does this happen? Well, we always are wanting to add things to our home. We need extra circuits. And so a lot of times what can end up happening is we end up overloading the panel. Maybe we just get a bunch of tandem breakers, and that can actually lead to some issues. And for instance, a 200 amp panel should only handle about 160 amps at once, because that really comes down to what is considered the 80% rule. But the problem with ignoring that rule is it can come with a big risk of having constant tripping or even overheating. So the way that we can make sure that this doesn't happen is to add up your circuit's amperage and to keep it under that 80% of the panel's rating. What this will require is knowing what the rating of your panel is. So for this case, it's a 200 amp panel. So then you would want to take 80% of whatever your panel is rated for so that you can figure out what its safe max capacity is. But if you're completely out of space, don't just automatically go to adding tandem breakers. What you'll want to do is you will want to consider installing a sub panel, which if you look in here behind me, in a way this is considered a sub panel. This is actually a transfer switch for a generator, but really on the surface, this is actually just a fancy sub panel where I've been able to move circuits to. It really is the best and safest way to add circuits that you now need. So again, look into a sub panel before just adding tandem breakers or extra breakers. And it's not just about adding the breakers, but what size of breakers, what's the demand going to be, and adding up the amperage that you're going to be adding to that panel. Not only, again, making sure that you're not taking it completely to the max, but also making sure that the legs are not out of balance. All right, so for this next really big mistake, I'm actually going to want to get the panel cover off of my panel so I can demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. Again, if you're ever going to do this, make sure that the power is off to that panel because we're going to be dealing with touching metal and possibly even accidentally touching inside of the panels. All right, so another big mistake that a lot of people make, it comes down to the wires that are entering the panel not having proper connectors on them. Now, what do I mean by connectors? I'm talking about where the wires are coming in. There should be some sort of connector on there that is protecting the wires or cabling that's coming through. And the reason for this is because those sharp knockout edges can easily cut through wiring insulation, which can lead to shorts or even some faults. I've actually seen where Romex cables are just shoved through the bare holes without any clamp or bushing, which in that case, you are really asking for trouble if you go about doing things that way. But a lot of people just don't even realize that that's a thing. But the fix for this, obviously, is going to be very easy. It's going to be the opposite of that. And that is to use a Romex connector or bushing for every single one of those knockouts where those wires are coming through. Now, there are different types of them. There are metal connectors that have screws, and these are very durable and they last for a very long time. There are also plastic snap-in ones, which I have in here on my panel, but regardless of which one you're using, they are all designed to protect the wiring insulation and to provide any necessary strain relief. All right, so for this next really big mistake, it is probably one of the most common mistakes that DIYers make, if not the most common. And that comes down to using the wrong wire gauge for your breaker. For instance, if you are trying to connect a 14 gauge wire to a 20 amp breaker, that is incredibly dangerous to do. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen where people have done this. Maybe they just have some 14 gauge wire laying around. They don't actually have 12 gauge wire and they don't understand the possible repercussions of doing that. But the reason why this is so dangerous is because that number 14 wire on that 20 amp circuit, it can't handle the potential current, which can lead to overheating or in some cases, and maybe even a lot of cases, an actual fire. Something that's very common that I've seen is melted wires from this exact issue. So the fix for this is also very easy, and that comes down to making sure that you are matching your wire to the breaker. So a 15 amp breaker needs at least 14 gauge wire, and a 20 amp breaker needs at least 12 gauge wire. And of course, the higher up you go, the higher gauge of wire you need. And oftentimes, one thing that helps make this a little bit easier is Romex sheathing comes in different colors. And usually the white sheath Romex is 14 gauge and the yellow is your 12 gauge wire. So I can't stress this enough how important this is to make sure that you're getting the wire size correct and matching it to that circuit breaker. Now, if you are thinking about using a different gauge wire, you can always go larger, but you can never go smaller. All right, so for this next really big mistake, it comes down to double tapping or putting more than one wire in a circuit breaker. And why do people do this? Well, for the same reasons that we talked about earlier when it came to overloading a panel. They're trying to add an extra circuit. They don't have room in their panel, so they think they can just add an additional wire into a circuit breaker and they're all covered. And And I will say, for the most part, in many ways, it will probably work, but you are running a very high risk of those wires becoming loose over time because the clamping mechanism that's in it, it doesn't take a whole lot then for those wires to get loose if there's any movement whatsoever, or if you didn't get the torque specs right. And so then you might have a loose wire, which can lead to a very serious issue. But in some cases, what is called double tapping, which is again putting two wires into one breaker slot, can be okay, but only if the breaker is designed to do so. What is the fix for this? Well, it's to check the breaker's label, because some breakers like Square D will allow for there to be more than one wire or two wires on a single breaker. But others like Eaton, for instance, they don't. So if you need more circuits, use a tandem breaker. Again, you need to be careful not to overfill or max out your panel. Or again, the safer option would be to install a sub panel. But no matter what you're doing, always make sure to follow the manufacturer's specs, and this way you will avoid problems. Verify what your breaker is and what it can handle, and don't overload breakers that are not designed to have more than one wire attached to them. All right, so for this next really big mistake, it's kind of the opposite in some ways to the ones that we've already talked about with overloading a panel, and it comes down to leaving either open knockouts or missing filler plates, which can be a giant safety hazard on a panel. And what I mean by missing filler plates is sometimes people might remove a circuit breaker, they don't need it anymore, and then you just have an open gap in that faceplate that goes to your circuit breaker panel. Well, those gaps, unfortunately, can let fingers, tools, or debris get inside of your circuit breaker panel, and you can risk having a short or even a shock. And the fix for this is very, very easy. You can either buy filler plates that go into those slots where the circuit breaker used to be. They will basically just look like flat pieces that cover up that slot so you don't get any debris, fingers, or tools going in there. That's one option. Or another option would be just to have a circuit breaker remain in that slot. Also, I quickly mentioned knockouts. There are also knockout covers that you can put in open knockouts. There is no reason to leave a knockout hole open either, because you invite some of the same exact things as you do when you leave a circuit breaker cover completely open. Just make sure that you're covering all of your open knockouts and covering any open slots in your circuit breaker panel. All right, so for this next big mistake, it actually piggybacks perfectly off of the last one that we just talked about with having those open knockouts or open circuit breaker panel slots. And that comes down to allowing debris to get inside of your panel. This can pose a serious fire risk. And if you've just got those open slots, you are just inviting those things to get inside of your circuit breaker panel and could possibly cause one of these issues. I personally have seen panels that look like a workshop floor that have just a bunch of combustible material sitting next to the live wires that are in that panel. And to be honest with you, when I open this up, this one doesn't look that much better. So what is the fix for this, or what should we be avoiding with this? Well, the fix is, since we're going to be working inside of our breaker panel, again, we want to make sure that we've got our power off. And then what I like to do is use a shop vac and just very carefully clean out that panel. Again, you want to be very careful not to touch or get close to any of those possible live wires that might still exist in there, even though that breaker is off. And then once I'm done vacuuming everything up with my shop vac, then I would want to check for any gaps where that debris might be getting in. And I want to make sure that I'm able to seal them. So again, if you've got open knockouts or a place where a circuit breaker used to be and it's just completely open, obviously those would be major places where you would want to make sure you're sealing those up. All right, so for this next really big mistake, it comes down to ignoring the torque specification for the screws and lugs that are in your panel. Now, a lot of people don't realize that every single connection in your panel has a specific torque setting, but the problem with not getting the torque right is if you leave them too loose, you might get arcing. If you leave them too tight, then you might risk stripping out the screw. I've personally seen loose lugs cause hot spots, and that will very quickly and easily damage your breakers and maybe even your wires. So what's the fix for this one? Well, in this case, as you can see here, I'm holding a torque screwdriver, and for around $30 to $40, a lot of them are going to be more than that, but kind of as a starting torque screwdriver, you can get them around that price point. Again, I'll have links for everything down below, but once you have one of these, you can make sure that you're getting everything torqued down to the proper specs. So again, how you find out what that is you check the breaker itself or the panel label, and you can usually find those torque specs there. And for instance, like with this one and most of your torque screwdrivers, you can actually set whatever the torque settings are in it. And then when you get to that specific setting, maybe it's 20 inch-pounds, you get to that 20 inch-pounds, a lot of times these are gonna beep or they're gonna let you know somehow that you have reached the proper torque spec, and therefore it is tightened down properly, and you can feel confident that you're not gonna have any issues. All right, so for this next really big mistake, it is not only a really big one, but it is also incredibly common. And I think it's really just because most DIYers don't keep up with what the code says, and that will come down to using the wrong breaker type. So you have your standard breakers like this one here, and then you also have what are known as AFCI breakers, or arc fault circuit interrupters. There are also GFCI breakers, which are ground fault circuit interrupters, and it just depends on the application where all of these would get used. And these are not only very important for certain areas, but they are also required by code. And this wasn't the case years ago, which is why I think so many people miss this. But what an AFCI breaker does is obviously they detect arc faults. So much like when a GFCI detects a ground fault, these AFCIs, when they detect an arc fault, they trip just like your GFCI would in the event of a ground fault. But again, what most people don't realize is that these are now required by code, and for good reason, in a lot of the rooms in your home. So places like your bedroom, your kitchen, your living rooms, dining room, etc., things like that. One of the unfortunate things about this though is your regular circuit breakers are very inexpensive, whereas your AFCI circuit breakers, they aren't cheap. But the good news is they are fairly easy to install. But then once all those steps have been followed, it's at this point that the circuit now meets code, and it's now protected from any arc faults. And therefore, since it's protected from arc faults, it's protected from the possibility of fire, shock, or even electrocution. So I'll have links for those. I'll also have links for everything you saw in this video. I'll have links for all of that down in the description down below this video. When you click on those links, it will take you directly to whatever you clicked on, so you can check out all of this for yourself. Now, if you found value in this video, then you will definitely find value in some videos that I did in the past that deal with some similar things, one of which we talked about briefly in this video, where it comes to changing out circuit breakers. I go actually in depth on how to properly change out a circuit breaker using a proper circuit breaker, the proper type of circuit breaker, and then of course all the steps in order to do so safely. So that might be of interest to you. If not, I also have some other videos where I go over some of the biggest mistakes that DIYers make when they're making wire connections. I go over what those mistakes are and then how they should be properly done. So whichever one of those videos interests you the most, all you have to do is click on one of these two pictures right over here. When you do, it will take you to whichever video you picked. But I hope that you found value in this video, and if you did, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button right down below. And of course, if you have any questions or comments still, you can leave those down in the comment section. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.